David Donnelly is the Emergency Management Director for Alachua County. He graduated from Cortland State with a bachelor's degree in public administration. He began his employment with Alachua County in 1997. He recently recertified as a certified emergency manager and a Florida professional emergency manager. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Mark. How are you today?
Good, good. It's always great to see you, and knock on wood, we got out of another hurricane season without you making me spend the night at the Emergency Operations Center. You know, I think it's just we haven't talked for a while, so I just wanted to kind of bring citizens up to date on the services that you provide and the important work that you do. So why don't we just start with the emergency management mission? What are you here to do?
Our mission is ever changing, but you know, our main mission is the development and sustainment of a disaster resilient community through engaging our population. So we want to create a community, much like the old Timex commercials, you know, takes a look and keeps on ticking, that we can become more self-sufficient as time goes on. So that's our main mission in getting ready for disasters.
How do you exist? Where does the money come from to put on an emergency operations center program?
We're a section of the county fire department, and our budget is roughly 50% local dollars, general fund, and 50% state and federal grants, and that's covered through the Emergency Management Preparedness and Assistance Trust Fund grant from the state. We are the only state in the country that has such a funding source, and then the Emergency Management Performance Grant from the federal government, which both are dollar for dollar sharing grants, as well as we get paid to go out and do hazard analysis for chemical sites from the state as well. So they collect fees from those operators and then pay the counties to do a site visit. So,
is that hazard analysis just in Alachua County, or do you go outside?
Just in Alachua County. Each county does that,
okay,
or contracts to have it done.
Every county has their own emergency management division?
That is correct. By state law, every county is to have a director and a program and a plan.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What kind of staffing does it take to do what you do?
Currently we have...
I'm sure it's not enough.
Well, that's interestingly enough, that's correct. Currently we have 4 full-time equivalents, 4 full-time positions, the director, myself, and we have an assistant director, emergency management coordinator, and a program coordinator. So we also have 2 interns right now that are doing a lot of good work for us, and we have a CERT volunteer, community emergency response graduate, that helps out with the community emergency response team program as we hold that. So roughly 4 full-time and 3 half-time or volunteers. So.
Of course, when you flip the switch and there's an emergency and you activate the EOC, you have about 800 employees, right?
This is true. This is true. We have an emergency response team comprised of 18 functional areas that are, you know, range from transportation to public works to firefighting to information and planning, which is what my staff does during a disaster, to mass care, which is the shelters, public information, as well as law enforcement and business and industry. So we have not only county departments sitting in those seats, we have a city department, we have a sheriff's office, as well as room at the table for our municipality and our educational partners.
I've had the privilege of being involved in an activation, and it really is something to behold when all of those government agencies and other agencies come together and work so beautifully together. And you know, it's like the normal cliches of government kind of fall by the wayside, and everybody moves and moves quickly. You know.
That's correct. It's really an ad hoc organization that, as one video describes it, never existed before and will never exist again, because you have different people and different players, because we have different disasters and people have moved on. So.
Yeah, in 11 years I went from a wide-eyed newbie to I have seniority sometimes when I'm in that room.
That's right, correct.
You know, when I used to think of what you did before I began working for the county, I always kind of thought, okay, if there's a hurricane, they jump into action, but it's really so much more. You know, can you talk about in general what your role is in a disaster, and maybe talk about the things other than hurricanes that you're involved in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, our role as emergency management, again, we're responsible for information and planning functions. So that means we collect situational awareness to create a common operating picture. Common operating picture can be likened to a puzzle that has all the pieces in it. So we're gathering pieces of the puzzle, these bits of situational awareness from the cities, the educational partners, the general public, putting them into a picture to share with the whole organization, which again includes those people we just mentioned. So knowing what's going on, and that picture changes rapidly, particularly during the disaster. So that's our main function. Our second function is resource management, knowing what the needs are and prioritizing those needs, and then getting the resources to meet those needs, again, whether it's in a municipality or one of our educational sites or to the general public. Day to day, we're always preparing for the next disaster. So that involves a lot of planning, a lot of training, a lot of exercises. We bring in that emergency response team and all those partners to train and exercise. We've taken advantage of FEMA's virtual tabletop exercise series throughout the year, which is just a good opportunity for people to touch base. We're actually expanding that this year. And we have some new plans we need to test out and run through as well. And I'm encouraging our county departments to update their continuity operations plan. And we've just exercised the continuity of government plan. So if something were to happen where we are missing some elected officials, how do we continue constitutionally elected government and deliver the services which people have come to expect?
From an educational point of view, you do more than just suggest we need to take classes and things. You kind of require it.
Well, I'll answer you how I did several years ago. I don't require it, the federal government does. So
if we want what they have to offer.
If we want federal funding and assistance, we have to be compliant with what they call the National Incident Management System.
Right.
And depending on your position in the organization, that requires a certain level of training. Of course, the folks being in the Emergency Operations Center have the highest level of training out of all the bunch. So, and we're the state checks with us every year to make sure we're on target for that compliance, and I'm happy to say we are. And but again, with turnover and promotions and retirements, we have to keep new folks trained up and
right.
and refresh some other folks and keep everybody on task. So
it is a robust set of classes that are required, and I joke about it, but if you've actually been through an activation, when you go to those classes, you're thinking about the real people that are involved and the real property and casualties, and it's serious stuff, and the training is really important. We mentioned disasters. I mean, there's hurricanes, there's a train wreck with some toxic chemical involved, there's fires. One unique emergency operation activation was during the Dove Outreach Church Koran burning of a few years ago.
correct.
What?
We activated to a partial level activation, level 2 activation. We brought in some of our core emergency support functions, just in case something were to happen. Fortunately that day the organization didn't end up burning the Koran. They did that later, but we were working in conjunction with the Gainesville Police. They had a command post near the site. We also had homecoming that day, so we had our usual complement out at the stadium. And the Sheriff's Office had another command post over on the west side. So we had 3 command posts in the field, talking back to the Emergency Operations Center, and again, just keeping a finger on the pulse of what was going on and any potential for escalation and the need for resources.
Talk to me a little bit about just some of the achievements of your office. I know there are multiple. I've heard so many over the years.
Right. Most recently, and this is something I'm fairly proud of, we completed a strategic plan for the program. It's not just for our office, the staff of 4. It was a year-long process in which we brought in the emergency response team and our recovery and resilience team folks. So we're talking upwards of close to, if not over 60 people, to walk through the process and identify, okay, what are our strengths and what are the gaps we need to address, and how can we address those gaps? And it kind of predated the county's effort in doing business plans, but it folds right into that. And we rolled our strategic plan right into the department plan as well. So it really worked out well, and we have our main goals for this year, and we've started working on those already, and we'll be updating those towards the end of the year and looking at picking up new things next year and hopefully completing those tasks this year as well. So
you identify your current needs and then look into the future with that plan?
Exactly right. Yeah. And it's for the program. It's a countywide program, and again, multiple departments, agencies, and they participated and really have helped us out. One of the other things I'm also very proud of, we were one of the first emergency alert system authorized alerting authorities in the state of Florida. I think we were second or third behind Miami-Dade and Pinellas County. What that means for folks is we can access the emergency alert system. That's the crawl on the TV and the on the radio,
Right.
and had this been a real emergency,
Right.
you'd be instructed what to do. And that's something I felt for the longest time was a missing part of our notification toolbox, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the other component to that is we have access to what they call wireless emergency alerts. And we can draw a circle on a map basically and send to cell phones. So
Right.
we have the TV, AM, FM radio, and now cell phones, and that provides us a way for people who haven't opted into our notification system to be reached. It's a way to reach non-residents that may be passing through when there's a tornado or a chemical spill.
Right.
So it gives us just another tool to reach folks. We have 5 generations in the society. Folks that will read the morning paper and watch the 6 o'clock news, to the folks that are on the little phones every day. And if they read a paper, it's online. And if they watch news, it may be a podcast or something like that. So,
Well, and before we go into all of those different ways that you can do that in your notification systems, I would be remiss if I didn't cut away to talk about El Nino. This is being taped in middle January 2016, and in the news today and yesterday was a January tropical storm, and I assume that's part of El Nino. So tell us a little more about that.
I haven't researched the connection to El Nino between, well, first it was subtropical storm Alex. Now it actually reached hurricane strength and has weakened. But that is highly unusual. It's been 40 years or more since they've had a January storm like that.
I didn't think they were allowed to have storms when it's not.
I was hoping that. So, but with El Nino, what our concern is, it's being forecasted to be on the magnitude of the 97-98 event. And for folks that were here then, or perhaps more so for the folks that weren't here, basically between Christmas of 97 and March of 98, we received 3 foot of rain, approximately 36 inches of rain.
In a nutshell, for
County.
folks who may not be familiar, what is El Nino?
El Nino is a warming of the Pacific equatorial waters off of Peru and Ecuador. It's usually a half a degree to 1 degree raise in temperature, and it's a consecutive 3-month period. So you have to have a quarter of months and another quarter of months. And so basically 3 quarters of high temperatures that raise in temperature to be considered El Nino. And how that impacts us in the United States and Florida specifically is, we saw less active hurricane season from the standpoint of nothing really threatened the United States other than Erica, which really kind of fizzled out before it got here. Right. Joaquin was kind of a late threat, but kept out to sea. So usually there's less hurricanes during hurricane season, but what we typically see in the wintertime is more rain and cooler temperatures. So again, going back to that 36 inches of rain over 3 months.
Right.
And the impacts that had, and then there's a higher risk for severe weather. So as these storms come through, like the one today, it wasn't quite to that magnitude, but they are having more severe weather down south because of it. We'll see more storms like that more frequently, and again, the higher potential for those impacts. And then the later concern is as we come out of the El Nino, in '98, we pretty much dried up and went into wildfire season, and we had wildfires going on for basically 2.5 years after that. So that's kind of a follow-on thing that a lot of people don't think about with El Nino is the wildfire connection. So those are the 3 impacts we need to be aware of in Alachua County.
But whether it's hurricane season or El Nino or man-made disaster or a terrorist event or whatever it is, notification is crucial. So
Absolutely.
Can you talk about some of the really interesting tools that you've been putting into place over the last few years?
The most recent one, which I think is really neat, is a system called Accessible Hazard Alert System, or AHAS. It's by a company called DefLink out of Texas. We've contracted with them, and what it does is when we send a message out through our other system called Code Red, they take that message, or they'll take a National Weather Service message, and put it in American Sign Language video. And the person, you have to opt in, so you have to sign up. We'll get a text or an email with a link to that video, and then go and watch the video. Along with the video, you have an English voiceover and English text. And if the individual uses a electronic braille reader, it'll send to that as well. So
Excellent.
It's just one more component to reach more of our population. We have Code Red, which is a rapid emergency notification system. We can text you, telephone you, or email you, or a combination thereof.
But that requires you to opt in.
And that requires you to opt in. Exactly right. So, highly recommend people go to codered.alachuacounty.us and sign up. You can put your home in there. You can put your business in there. You can put multiple phone numbers, so for spouse and children and whoever. But now's the time to know where to get information before, during, and after a disaster. So I would encourage people to do that. We talked about the emergency alert system and wireless emergency alerts.
Right.
That's not an opt-in, but again, that's going to be something for a large incident where we need people to take action right then and there. We're out there on social media. We just signed on to Nextdoor, and I think we're having brilliant success with that.
What is Nextdoor?
Nextdoor is kind of a private social network for neighborhoods. So you go on and set up your neighborhood, and you have to have a minimum of 10 people, I believe, in your neighborhood sign on to maintain the viability of the group. And I was looking at the numbers just recently. We have, since we announced we were on Nextdoor and sent that out to the public, we've had probably 120 people get on Nextdoor because of that, and we've had 3 neighborhoods start their group on Nextdoor. Since then. So
what a great idea, though, to coordinate as a neighborhood.
Exactly right, and it's fabulous because I'm on it as a citizen, and in my area I have my neighborhood and then the neighboring jurisdictions. And if I want to message my neighbors specifically, I can do that. If I want to hit everybody, maybe it's a citywide notice that people should know about, you can do that as well. So. And there have been concerns, as the government side, I can post things there, let people know about, like our spotter class that's coming up in February. Let them know when it is, where it is. I can see replies to that, but I cannot see neighborhoods and neighbors talking to each other. I can't see the yard sale advertisements and nothing like that. So to alleviate people's concerns, we're not snooping on you. We're just trying to get more information to you in a concentrated way, because there are some times where an incident's going to only impact a certain area of the county,
like
and we can
tornado or
exactly, and we can just target those neighborhoods, not the whole county.
I'm really sorry for this next set of questions, because I thought we were done talking about floods this year, but with El Nino, people have to remain vigilant about it. So I know you've got a number of flood issues that you wanted to talk about, so why don't we start with permitting and flood zone determination?
Right. Basically, people should know whether or not they live in a flood zone. And the way to do that is
if they've been here a while, they probably do.
They probably do, exactly. We had some people being impacted late last summer, early fall. We felt that was kind of El Nino kicking in. It kind of slackened off at the end of the hurricane season, and now is starting to ramp up again. So again, with that concern of a strong El Nino, we could be seeing flooding.
And we had some pretty dramatic flooding this year in some certain areas, designated areas.
Right. So the way to find out, what your flood hazard area is, if you live in the unincorporated area, you can call County Public Works. That number is 352-337-6140, or the City of Gainesville Public Works, 352-334-5069. They'll be able to know where your address is and where that is in relation to the flood zone.
Then you know your risk.
Exactly right. And from there, you find out if you need flood insurance. And flood insurance is not part of your homeowner's insurance. You have to buy a separate policy.
That's an important point.
Exactly right. And more importantly, it's a 30-day waiting period. So, if you feel like we're going to have flooding tomorrow, you can't.
You don't want to wait till the weather report.
Right. Exactly right. So get with your homeowner's insurance agent. Open up a flood policy. There are preferred risk policies that are lower, depending on how your relation to the flood zone area. Renters also should have insurance. So again, get with your insurance agent because
So if your landlord has flood insurance, that doesn't cover your possessions.
It doesn't cover contents and things like that. So make sure you look into that. And the benefit, Alachua County is a participant in the National Flood Insurance Program, so that allows anybody to get flood insurance. But we're also a participant in the community rating system, which is another component to NFIP, which allows us to take proactive measures to reduce the hazard to homeowners. So we are a Class 6, which is pretty good. There are, it's a ISO or Insurance Services Organization rating, so the lower the number, the better it is. There are some 4s and 5s out there, I think in Florida. I think there's a 3 up in Oklahoma or somewhere. They've really done a lot of work, but that allows, as a Class 6, that allows unincorporated policyholders to get a 20% discount on their flood insurance.
Okay.
And we're always striving to reduce that. And the City of Gainesville is a Class 7. That's a 15% discount on policyholders in the City of Gainesville. So, and they're always working on lowering their class as well. So, county and city government are doing due diligence and reducing. One of the, flooding is the biggest natural disaster that happens in the United States. So,
is that right?
that's correct. So that's something we should focus on. The state is focusing on that as well, trying to get more communities into the community rating system and lower that cost, and just be prepared for that.
Are sandbags an effective tool?
Sandbags are an effective mitigation measure against flooding, but again, I would encourage people, because the county and the city will not distribute sand or sandbags prior to a state of emergency.
Right.
That folks, if you know you're in a flood zone, you know you're going to need sandbags, go out and get them now. Right. And get your sand, or at least have a mechanism.
Flooding doesn't always mean we have a state of emergency.
That is correct.
If it's localized.
It can be very localized, so
right,
that's
right.
correct. So
and you can go to the hardware stores and
correct.
Pick up sand and bags.
Yep.
Right.
That's correct.
I guess it's important to do research before you decide to build a house, too.
That is true as well. We have as part of the community rating system and National Flood Insurance Program, we are required to meet certain standards. The county has a land development code, Chapter 406, which speaks to if you are building in a flood hazard area, you have to have a special permit for that. Again, you have to determine if you are, and then get the permit through county codes or city codes if you're in the city. County building and zoning is 352-374-5244, and the city is 352-334-5050. With that, though, we try to, I know in our land use development or land development code or regulations, we try to discourage development in floodplains and wetlands and things like that. So, if you're buying a house, or you're planning on building a house, or you're buying property, you need to know now if, again, flood zone, wetlands, things like that.
And it's an environmental concern as well, because if you're in an area that's likely to flood, there's a good chance that you're in a wetland area, and you've got to be very careful about just starting to develop something like that.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Would it be helpful if the director of FEMA, if you knew him personally? Is that a good thing?
It can be.
I know I always bring this up, but we've got a local boy who did well.
We do. Craig Fugate is the FEMA administrator. That's his title. He still maintains a residence here in Alachua County, and there are some Craig sightings over the years. I've heard people. He's been in town, so. I think he's done very well by Alachua County and the state of Florida, and I think he's doing a good job at FEMA as well. So I think if we had impacts anywhere in Florida, let alone Alachua County, he's going to make sure they're going to do their utmost, and that's for any state. It's not really favoritism. He is a true public servant, and will do whatever he can to make sure his organization does the job.
But it doesn't hurt to say, "Hey, is Craig there? This is Dave."
It doesn't, but yeah.
Hey, I was thinking back to 2004 when we had the rapid succession of storms hit one right after another, and the cooperation with FEMA, and there was, I guess, multiple avenues where FEMA's helping. We had all of the contractors cutting and removing fallen trees, and can you explain how that works with FEMA?
Okay, so what would happen if we had a storm, let's say a hurricane, because that's going to be the thing that will impact most of the county at one time. We have to have enough damage as a county, and it's a per capita base, and it's like $3.28 per person. So it's close to $800,000.
Right.
So we have to have $800,000 just in damage to public infrastructure, whether it's roads, debris costs, so on and so forth. whether
that's to kick in
that's
a
to
FEMA.
even say, please come help us.
Right.
Now, there's not really that same type of, and that's for public assistance, which means aid to governments that have spent money dealing with a disaster. Individual assistance is a little different. There really isn't a trigger point for that. Kind of a rule of thumb is 25 homes and/or 5 businesses, which is why we really encourage people. I know folks want their 15 minutes of fame, but when you take pictures of the flooding or the sinkhole or the tree on your house, while you're sending it to the media, please send it to us, because if we know there's 25 homes being impacted, we can start that ball rolling and start getting assistance.
So, Dave, I understand that there's maybe some increased scrutiny coming down at the congressional level.
That's correct. The crucial thing that's happening now is Congress is looking at how FEMA recommends a declaration to the president, what the criteria is, and through recommendations from the Congressional Research Service and the Government Accounting Office, that there's a way to pare that back. Maybe look at things like the economic vitality of a community, that if the community is expected to bounce back a little quicker, they may not get a declaration as soon as another community might. So it's about trying to save money and perhaps redirect money, but really when it comes down to it is ultimately, are we going to have the resources to meet the needs of the disaster survivors?
So, Dave, no interview would be complete without asking you to remind us what the 4 pillars of preparedness is.
Sure. Get a plan, know what you're going to do when the disaster happens, where you're going to evacuate to, how to communicate with family members. Get a kit, have the disaster supply kit, food and water. We recommend enough water for 5 days, and food, 1 gallon of drinking water per day. Be informed, know where to get information before, during, and after a disaster, so where to go, what shelters are open, what assistance is available. And lastly, be involved through our Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT program. We train folks how to take care of themselves and their neighbors and their coworkers during an emergency.
There's a lot of stuff on the website where they can learn more, and thank you so much for
thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Always informative. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, all the smoke alarms are here tonight.
I just want to say a couple of things about old Hal here. Let's remember, he's a hero and saved this house and family when he spotted that kitchen fire. You've had a good 10 years. We'll miss you, Hal. Hey, it's Hal's replacement. Check out that new technology.
Here, kid. You'll need a fresh one of these. Rookie.
Remember to replace any smoke alarm older than 10 years and replace the batteries in your alarms every year.